We are combining our weekly The Last Dance recap, and we're going to jump right into that. Like we said just last night from when we are recording this, was week 5, episodes 9 and 10, the finale of The Last Dance. So let's jump into it. Our favorite moments. Does anybody want to start?
Matt, I'll let you go. Matt.
I had a couple, and mine were kind of like brief little snippets, so I'll hit them quick. Michael talking about, he goes, "I ain't Shaq," when he was talking about O'Neal.
Yep.
They're talking about, the physical toll that, that the Jazz laid on teams with, the Lakers, the Western Conference Finals. He banged with Shaq and they shut him down. Well, I ain't Shaq. It tells you right there, Michael, no one's off limits. Even the greats, the other greats are still within his sight line. I remember the 54-point game when they allowed 54 points in the NBA Finals. That game, insane. That was insane, dude. It was an absolute just picture-perfect defensive performance from start to finish. And the Jazz, a lot of it, too, is they went ice cold. You can't just shut down another good NBA team solely like that. They've got to do some of it their own. But people forget how great defensively those Bulls teams were, too. It's not just
any of those teams were like the scoring 80s and low 90s and low 70s. Man. Like you don't see that anymore.
Over 100.
10-point games. 10-point games were blowouts at that point.
Mm-hmm.
Like when you're up 12, 15 points on a team, it's over. Those games were done. So that kind of thing. Rodman sneaking out of gate 3.5 at the United Center was fantastic.
Yeah, that was cool. That was cool.
That was awesome.
I thought that was really cool how they showed that they had the footage of that sneaking away from the media and getting out of that side gate that we all know where it's at. The coolest thing though, real quick too, was Michael. The fact that he was just okay not going out, or he was okay not going out with the picture perfect storyline. He wanted to make someone take it from him. And a lot of other athletes say, "Oh, go out on top." He didn't give a shit about that. He wanted to make somebody prove he wasn't the best.
Yeah.
And he had that chance ripped away from him. And the last little quote that when he talked about when he was drafted by the Bulls and they were a fledgling organization, they had nothing going for him. He said something along the lines of, "All it takes is one little match to start the whole fire." And that comment was just like, it's exactly what it was when he was drafted at that team, that organization. It started a fire for years to come for that city with NBA basketball, just basketball in general, the Bulls organization. They owned not only the city, but obviously a good chunk of the world, man. And that's all it took was one guy going there, and it started the whole thing.
Dude, he was like the biggest person on the planet from 1991 to 98. I mean, it was insane how big he was.
I was listening to something today. They're like, well, some people ask, "Oh, why didn't Michael go hang out with his teammates, whatever?" Because if you wanted to go out to eat with Michael Jordan, like you had to call ahead, you had to get police. Like he wasn't like any person. Like even now, he's not like any type of person. Like the type of celebrity he is like not even thought of anymore because like there's so many people kind of like that now.
Yeah, it's such a different world.
Yeah, because of social media now, like your celebrities are so like accessible in a way.
Yeah,
like and for when that, it's like whenever you saw Michael Jordan, it was like, oh my gosh, look at that, and it's one of those things. That's why I feel like he is kind of why he has gotten to be so private is because it was so crazy when he was going in that. My favorite moment was when he finally won that last championship, and it was like you got to see the real personality in him, like the fun side of him. Like you got to see his competitive side throughout it. Like you got to see how he like won with his team. Like he like got his teammates to be this, whatever, great. But at the end of it, you finally got to see like how fun he could be and the personality that he had and the jokester that he was, and like he was just trying to have fun. And yes, he wanted to win basketball, but he was also like, and also the way that they did the whole like he can live in the moment. Like when he was having fun and like right at the start of the NBA championship in '98, like he didn't care about anything other than the moment. Like he could, like like they said, he was pretending, he was making it seem like the game 1 of the NBA championship was like a preseason game, the way he had the headphones and he was just or like having fun. Like he always was just in the moment, and I think that's also what makes him great. Is like he never looked forward, never looked back. He was always in the moment.
Definitely.
Great point.
Yeah,
it's a great point.
Couldn't agree more. My favorite moment, and it's one of my all-time favorite sports moments. It's something that also, like, as a personal connection, my dad being a basketball coach has always talked about it, and that's the last shot and their breakdown of it and the different camera angles. That just was everything for me. You know, my dad when he would do camps and stuff and teach us form, he always talks about Mike holding that shot, you know, flicking the wrist, and he goes into that when he was, you know, sitting there, like Zach had said, talking about, you know, flicking his wrist, and then all the camera angles of all the people in the background. And that was definitely my favorite part, just panning every little tiny bit of that, of the most iconic shot in basketball history. So
that was last week. What I said I was looking forward to the most was hearing him go into that whole scenario, the whole, you know, the three play stretch that was. It was so incredible. And like you said, there was I think ESPN too. They released that same game with the HD footage or with advanced camera footage. I saw some of that last night. That was insane. Like that watching that game with HD after you know, watching it on the documentary. Holy crap! It gives you a whole new perspective on that too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Especially like watching the Jazz fans' faces.
Oh,
yeah,
there was one kid. One kid was in a Bulls
jersey.
His dad's like this. The kid's arms are up in the air. It's like, oh man, it's awesome.
That was awesome.
Like and also, before everybody.
Jordan did not push off either. Like that, it did look like his momentum was going that way.
He guided him.
And also, could I go in the flu game stuff? Like he just says it's not a flu game, and like didn't he sell shoes that were called the flu game shoes?
Game 12. Those are my favorite.
Like, he knew it wasn't the flu game, I guess, but he said
the
food poisoning game doesn't sell.
Food poisoning game 12s doesn't roll off the tongue very well.
He's like it wasn't. I wasn't
stomach
like
flu
actually
game.
have the flu. He's like I actually just like had food poisoning. It's like, well, what the heck?
Yeah, Pigo, what was your favorite moment of episodes 9 and 10?
Well, aside from earlier where I said I liked that I didn't mention any of the wizard stuff, like I think what was kind of cool was how Phil Jackson had all the guys, you know, write down, you know, a certain memory from, you know, the run and put it in a coffee can, and he burned it, signaling the end of this whole thing. So I thought that was, I mean, it was really sad, but it was also like, holy shit, like, you know, it's at least the coach and everybody else knew what was going on, and he's like, okay, if we're gonna end it, let's end it on our terms, and I thought that was pretty cool. So
I would love to know what Michael Jordan's poem was.
Yes,
I would love to know. That'd be awesome to know what that was. It was just like, what could he have said?
So that was pretty cool for sure.
Let's jump into our most surprising moment. And I'll start because this was kind of already mentioned. I had two things written down that Zach and Matt had already both brought up. Dennis Rodman leaving. And I remember that Dennis Rodman being a wrestler. But that was, I kind of forgot how, big that was. And then even Zach saying how they or Matt said they ushered him out of door 3.5. Like that stuff is not, I could imagine if I guess the equivalent would be like the third best player on, the Warriors a couple years ago, like jumping, practice to go to be a wrestler. Like that.
I completely forgot that happened too. Like I did not remember that happened during the NBA Finals. I remember him going and being a part of NWO, but I did not remember that being a part of during the NBA Finals.
That's just nuts, man. What a character. And then my other one I had, like Zach said, that it wasn't a push off, because anyone that's a Bulls fan that has ever talked about that to someone that's not a Bulls fan or wasn't a Michael Jordan fan, oh, well, Mike pushed off. And when you saw that camera angle from the sideline, you're like, no, he definitely didn't push off. Like,
what about Reggie Miller's shove off?
I still to this day, and I talked about it last week. I hate Reggie Miller. I hate everything he is. I hate who he is as a person. I just hate Reggie Miller. And like when he threw Michael Jordan up, like I got visibly angry watching it. I'm like, that's a foul. Like I was so mad at that. I still hate Reggie Miller.
He wanted so bad to be Jordan. He wanted so bad.
He's a punch.
Well, he wanted to retire him too, which is like he even said, he goes, "I'm going to go get the guy that retires Michael Jordan." And like, well, but you didn't have a fucking chance, so just
yeah. My most surprising moment was when Scottie Pippen did say that he thought Jerry Krause was the greatest general manager of all time.
Yeah.
Not saying it's not wrong.
Good point.
But I was surprised. I'm like,
did he say
wow, like you didn't seem like you thought that in the moment. And I understand everyone gets to look back, but like he had already could have fixed the 1.8 second thing. He didn't fix that. He kind of said he doubled down on that. And right at the end, he kind of pulls out that he's like, I played with the greatest player, the greatest coach, and the greatest general manager. And I was just kind of surprised that he ended up saying that after all like the kind of vibe he was giving off.
Definitely very surprised.
I agree.
Maddie, what's your most surprising?
Most surprising was, I got to go back. It was the Rodman situation. The fact that happened during the NBA Finals is just mind blowing to me. And
it's crazy, just everything with him. Like he went to Vegas for 48 hours in the midst of like the biggest season in one of the NBA history. Like
the one thing about that too is it tells you how damn important he was to that team, because they wouldn't.
No,
nobody's gonna put up with that shit if it's nobody. If you're not doing it. For
if it was Scott Burrell, he would have got cut. Right.
That's why. But that's why you knew that Rodman was one of like. He's a Hall of Famer for a reason. It's like he could go do all that crazy stuff, but when he was on the court, they trusted him to go out and win games. The thing is,
he never took a play off when he was on the floor. So his max effort. It didn't matter if he was on a coke bender or 2 nights or 2 hours of sleep in the last week. He's still going, full bore when he's on the floor. They weren't missing a beat. They weren't missing a step. He had that ability to just flip the switch when he's on the floor to shut everything off in his body, physically, mentally, whatever it may be. Focus on the floor for that 48 minutes and get the hell off and go have a hell of a time afterwards. He's a freak of nature in that regard.
He never wanted to disappoint people, and I think that's what the whole thing was. That started
with Chuck Daly. And he spoke to that in the earlier episodes. He was talking about he didn't want to let Chuck Daly down, and you could tell then that's where that seed's planted and stuff like that. And when you start having a loyalty to a guy who's sticking his neck out for you, when he started seeing that Phil Jackson was doing that for him, when he started seeing Jordan was doing it for him, he's like, shit, all right, I got to make sure I can still come through for these guys. So I think there's still that he knew inherently that those guys still had his back, even when he did fuck up,
Exactly. Pigoy, surprising moment of episodes 9 and 10 last night.
I mean, it's probably got to be the kind of Steve Kerr deep dive.
That was good.
What happened with him, and I mean, it's a sad moment for sure. But I mean, I didn't know anything about that, and I saw kind of the reaction was that that was a pretty well kept secret, unless you understood who Steve Kerr was and all that stuff like that. But for the guy who was watching, I'm like holy shit, man, that was pretty rough for Steve Kerr, and understandably so. So that was my biggest surprise of the night for sure was Steve Kerr.
Great, that's a great point, Pigo. I saw a tweet about, and I don't know if it was Danny Parkins or somebody.
Yeah, I think I know where you're going with this.
I think talking about and you guys wonder why Steve Kerr talks about social activism and gun control. Yeah. He's got a point. It
makes a lot of fucking sense.
Yeah. So I thought that was a really, really interesting deep dive, because he's one of those guys that kind of gets left by the wayside when you talk about, the 90s Bulls, just on the surface, but obviously he played such a major role in his backstory. It doesn't get talked about quite enough. Let's jump into our favorite person of episodes 9 and 10. I'm going to keep this very simple, and this is such a basic ass answer, but it was Michael Jordan. I mean, just look.
I can't stand you. I can't believe you did that to me. That's who I was going to take.
I'm sorry. I thought
it can be both of yours.
It's so basic, but just to see how his brain works, and as someone who coaches and someone who tries to learn new things, it was just so you can't teach the things that he would do, in the way his mentality was, and playing with food poisoning and playing as well as he did, and just everything, the insight he was willing to give for 10 episodes. Yeah, it took 22 years, but it's better late than never, and I just thought he did a wonderful job in all of his interviews. I felt like he was very open and honest, and touched on every. I mean, shoot, he talked about like his dad getting murdered and his gambling. Like he didn't hold anything back, which is one of the things I was a little worried about when they said that he had final cut. But hats off to Mike. That was. There's very few words to describe it. It was one of the best documentary series I've ever seen.
Totally agree, and I just had to give you a hard time because I thought I was going to get a sneaky one there with just going right to the default answer. But real quick, I just want to throw out on Jordan. I thought that again, the fact that he wanted to make someone take the title away from him.
Yeah,
he wanted to make somebody come rip the ring away from him. That just tells you right there how much he what he was made of inside. And shout out to Pigo, back to your point on Steve Kerr. That was such a great story. And the fact he had that kind of, the unspeakable bond with Jordan, with their relationships with their dad, the way their dads both passed away, how it was just sudden, both taken from them, too. And no, go ahead.
Oh yeah, no, it makes sense. Like, and they asked him, like, did you ever discuss your fathers or whatever? And then like, no, we didn't talk about that much, but you understood as you're watching it, like, yeah, I wouldn't want to talk about that with him either,
right? But they knew. It's like they knew.
Yeah, they knew
that
there was something there, but they didn't want to talk about it because it was very emotional for both of them.
Right. That's
how about that exchange with Larry Bird too at the end of Game 7?
Fuck you, you bitch!
The bitch, fuck you.
That was good.
I tell you, you see the mutual respect that Jordan had for the elite. Like, he never ripped on Bird. He never ripped on Magic Johnson. He never ripped on Julius Erving. Those guys were the ones that, like, he took that mantle from, and he never forgot that they were in that same category as him in terms of, running the league and owning the league and being the focal point of the league. So I think keeping that in mind is like, it's like the elite of the elite have that bond together where it's like, yeah, we have a mutual respect that nobody else in the world's ever going to understand.
Right. Like, you can't go up to Jordan and be like, fuck you, unless you have
Larry Bird can.
Yeah.
You can't be Brian Scott and try to pull that.
Yeah, or like Jordan can say, go work on your golf game. I mean,
you just church him out the door to like, hey, work on your golf game, buddy. We'll see you later.
Then you go back to like the stories about Bird. Like, he'd walk in the 3-point contest and say, who's finishing second?
Yeah.
Like, it's something as unimportant as a 3-point contest. He walks in and says, who's finishing second? And walks right back out. Those are the mentality. Those are just dogs, man.
My favorite character has got to be Gus, the security guard.
Yeah.
Like Michael Jordan's pretty much best friend throughout his stay in Chicago. They kind of became friends when he broke his foot in like the second year he was with the Bulls. And he said he kind of became his father figure after his father passed away. And it was just like, it's just the bond that they had and the way that it seemed like in Game 7 against the Pacers, kind of his presence being there kind of gave one of those things. Jordan always needs something to play for, and with him being there was something for him to play for. And it was just kind of cool to see the relationship that he had. Like, you don't really see a lot of relationships with Michael Jordan because, like they were saying on the radio today, even like players in the league right now and stuff like that, you don't know that they're friends with Michael Jordan because he likes to keep everything private. And if he can't trust you to keep something private, like, he's not going to be friends with you in the first place. So like, he could be, like you said, you didn't know about with his relationship with the in depth how it went with Kobe until Kobe passed away, because he just likes to keep everything so private. So it was cool to see like the way that he talked about him and how he said he talked about him with everything. It's just cool to see him open up about somebody that was so special to him.
Yeah, and like they talked about him, helping him, like noticing that he was sick on the road and let his wife know to go get, him checked out.
He's got to go to the doctor now. Like this, he cared.
But he didn't want any of that publicized. Like, imagine you would get on like, the Chicago Sun-Times of like a pot or a fluff piece, Michael Jordan's, helping out his security guard with his chemo and stuff like that. But like, that wasn't what it was about. And that was really cool to see that relationship.
You could never say about Michael Jordan that he ever did anything for the media. He never tried to, he never was doing anything for the media. The media was just there when he was doing amazing things.
Right. Like, he didn't care if he was talked about or not. It was just,
especially now with there's so much social media now, and you see nothing. There's nothing. He does nothing on social media, nothing like that.
Yeah, I agree. And I mean, I kind of brought it up in my most surprising moment, but I think my favorite person was probably Phil Jackson, is the way to how he ended all of the stuff. But I also liked the part when they're talking about it was the '98 finals, and they pan to, like, Pippen, Rodman, Kerr, and they go, "Who's taking the last shot?" And then Rodman goes, "Fuck, I ain't taking that fucking ball. That's Jordan's ball."
Even Scottie Pippen's like, "I'm getting out of the way. I'm getting out of the way.
I'm getting out of the way." And Pippen's like, "Oh, that's Mike's shot, man. That's Mike's shot." And like, I just liked how like they did that quick wraparound where it's like everybody knew there was only one person in the entire world who was touching that basketball, and it was Jordan. And
Bro, if you watch it, I didn't know if Dennis Rodman was going to come down the court. It felt like he was just going to stay at the other end and say, "Screw it." Like,
You're right.
You watch him talk about it, he's like, "Yeah, I'm not touching that ball."
He's
Why waste my energy?
Yeah, why do I need to go down the court?
He's probably out till 2 in the morning with Carmen Electra. You don't want to waste any more energy.
Save it for defense, man.
Can you blame him? Pigoy, can you blame him?
Yeah, I was going to say.
My goodness.
How about our least favorite person of episodes 9 and 10?
All right,
I think we're gonna all have a mutual answer. I think on this one.
Jerry Reinsdorf, dude.
Yep.
What?
Let's all just tee off on it.
I can't pay. Steve Kerr made $1.8 million. You're saying he wouldn't sign a 1-year contract? Michael Jordan wanted to sign a 1-year contract. He would have. I bet you, with the way he was talking, he would have at least taken some sort of pay cut to get Scottie Pippen to come back. Rodman would have been maybe a little hard to get back, and he was also getting a little older too. But I feel like you could have built a team, even if it wasn't that exact team. You could have gone out and got some veterans and stuff to build a team around Michael Jordan to win a 7th championship. Let it end by someone beating them. Don't let it end by you saying that you don't have enough money. Like, give me a break, dude.
Yeah, it's funny how it started off that Jerry Krause was like the villain, and then it ended with Reinsdorf being the villain.
Well, because you got to realize, as you win, I think people started to realize, like, okay, yes, whatever Jerry Krause did was approved by Jerry Reinsdorf. Like, Jerry Reinsdorf was.
And also, it makes you think, like, was Jerry Krause just doing what he was told by Jerry Reinsdorf?
I think they all had their own part. Like, he also had a part in it too, or whatever. But like,
he had an admittedly large ego too.
Yeah, you can't just pretend like Jerry Reinsdorf had nothing to do with it. Like, you even look at the White Sox now. Like, they're just like, you won a championship in 2005, and then you just don't capitalize off it. You don't keep. I mean, you just don't. Yeah. It just seems like he just loves, like, to be meaty. I don't know. Like, he doesn't want.
A couple years ago about it, the best thing to do is finish in second place. Like, that's such a thing to say. I had a couple other least favorite people, and one of them was the blonde white lady behind the Bulls bench yelling, "You God damn you!" She's the precursor to the lady that flipped Joakim Noah off. And then also my other one was Karl Malone. I never liked Karl Malone, and then after doing some research last night, I found out Karl Malone's a pretty horrible human being.
He's a dirtbag.
He goes taken. He is just a turd in the punch bowl. So he is now like number 2 behind Reggie Miller in my I hate you list.
He also tried to say I heard an interview today. He said he wasn't asked, but then they have also said that he denied it. So, like, I don't know why he would lie about that.
He's a very dislikable person.
Yeah, horse's ass. Now, let's jump into any complaints we have, and this can be about episodes 9 and 10 or the whole thing in general. Does anybody have any complaints? I know it's hard to look at it.
Only 10 episodes. My complaint is there's only 10 episodes.
I'm going to go with that one too.
I was waiting for my Ashton Kutcher moment where he comes out of the back. He's like, "Yeah, you've been punked. We've got 10 more episodes." Like, I was waiting for that, and it just never happened.
And it's also one of those things, like, people need to realize, yes, it was very centered around the Bulls, but that was a Michael Jordan documentary. Yeah. Like, that was what his view of it was. So, like, yeah, it was going to be in his favor for most of it, yeah. But I think it was really well done. I mean, like I said, this is a complaint section, but I can't really throughout it, we always have, like, we always have little complaints. But for an overall view of it, I mean, it was something that, like, it's just they put it together very well.
I have one other very small complaint, and that's someone who has a terrible attention span. And I think for the most part, understood the timeline. And, like, But like, just all they had to do was like in the top right corner of the screen, just put what year they were in. You know, like
especially at the end of it, like when they played the Jazz in '97 and '98,
Yeah.
like I was getting like I know like there's spots where it says '97, '98, like
But
in
then
the
it goes away
background or
after, like,
whatever. But like,
seconds.
yeah, I was kind of very
Like,
confused.
in the top right corner, tell me what you like. Don't even have to say like if it's the Eastern Conference Finals, the NBA Finals, whatever the case is. Just put the year in the top right corner. That's all I wanted to see. Anybody else? Any other complaints?
I don't really have any. I mean, everything you guys have said is valid. Like, you know, I can't say anything that anybody here has said is a ridiculous take as far as, you know, complaint. It did everything for me. It hit the nostalgia. It hit the emotional side. It hit, like, I learned a couple things. Saw some things that jogged my memory again too. So I can't really. I won't say it was a perfect, you know, documentary. It probably had some flaws, but I can't really complain about it. So, you know, no, I really don't.
Absolutely. It's hard to nitpick something so, you know, so pivotal right now in the world we live in. Pigoy, any complaints?
No. I mean, you guys pretty much covered it all too. So that was cool. I like you said, like, I heard that was pretty much the common complaint was like, it seemed to bounce around a ton where it was hard to keep up with. But I mean, if that's the worst complaint you have of the whole thing, it's like, then it was a pretty damn good thing. Because, I mean, a dip into Michael Jordan's competitiveness and his drive was just like incredible. So
I almost think too, it's like becoming almost trying to, like, a hot take to say something bad about it. You know, people are like trying to like get their.
Well, yeah, if there's somebody that's always going to complain about something, like you said, especially at this time, like there's so many people. But I didn't understand, like, I don't know the numbers like exactly, but I didn't understand the viewership on that Game 6 against the Jazz. Like that will never be done again.
No,
Like, those numbers will never be done again.
Did you measure that streaming availability then too?
Oh my gosh! Like, that's insane that many people were watching. It's I said I can't remember the number. I heard it today on radio. Like the difference between like
3.5 million.
That's insane.
I'd love to know what the local number in Chicago was too.
No, for
everybody.
Sure.
Everybody,
every TV.
Like, it's funny, like, because that goes on how many televisions were tuned into that. Like, I know when I watched that game, I was at a graduation party for one of my dad's former students, and there was no joke, like 15 to 18 people sitting around that one, you know, 32-inch TV. So it's kind of
about bars and stuff.
How many eyeballs saw it?
Yeah, that's the real question. You lost 16 viewers on that, you know, on that rating total right there, Boomy.
Yeah. Exactly.